Hey, everybody. This is Dr. Josh Satterlee of Clinic Gym Radio. And I'm here with the one and only master of the forward-thinking universe, Dr. Bobby Maybee. Hi, Bobby.
Hello.
And we are lucky to have a leading researcher in the world of chiropractic, Dr. Tim Raven. Tim, how are you?
Really good, Josh.
Nice. Well, we wanted to do something a little special here because the three of us are sitting in Tim's penthouse suite in the Paris Hotel in Las Vegas, but we are all here for the Parker Seminar, which is very exciting. I think it's a very exciting time in chiropractic, and this certainly is a different kind of Parker than I'm used to. I came here 10 years ago, and this is way different.
I might even say there's never been a greater time to be a chiropractor.
Wow. That's big words from a big man, but I would agree with that. I'm seeing a lot of great stuff here. I'd love to hear your guys' opinion. Bobby, what have you seen? And by the way, we're doing something special here. We're going to try and use this as a dual FTCA forward podcast and Clinic Gym Radio podcast. And Tim, if you want to start a podcast, we already have your first episode done, so let us know.
This could be episode 1, yeah.
Yeah. But what are you seeing, Bobby? You went to this a lot of different workshops over this last couple of days. What's inspiring you?
Well, from what I've learned today, inspiration doesn't matter, which is actually quite ironic for something like a Parker Seminars. It usually takes me a while to collect my thoughts on what I've seen or what I've felt, but what I'm getting right now is even if you would consider yourself an evidence-based chiropractor, if you're not here, I think you're actually kind of missing out. And hopefully as this episode goes on, I can kind of elaborate on that.
Yeah. I'm noticing that what used to be, and I'm not speaking for anybody in this group, I'm just speaking for myself. I can't remember, it was 9 or 10 years ago, and it was, I would say 80% philosophical base or motivation, and maybe 20% information. And I would, looking at the different, there was 2 people speaking about documentation today. There was people speaking of rehab. There was probably, 2/3 was what I would consider well within the evidence-informed version of chiropractic. And then there's still some inspiration. You can still go and get your goosebumps to pop up a little bit if that's what you're looking for, which isn't bad. I mean, you got to have some motivation and some happiness, but that's my take of what I saw in the offerings.
Well, what I saw was the people who are here are participating. They're doing something. So, I from what I heard in the FTCA group, as we were sort of, it's very easy to sort of make fun of something like Cal Jam or the bigger tent revivals that we have in the profession. But this thing has not come across as a tent revival whatsoever. And I had one previous experience with Parker Seminars. It was like 80%. 70% motivational, and then like 20% information, like you said, and then there was 10% of this sort of like chiropractic philosophy thing. I don't think this event should be equated with those other events that sort of go off that deeper end.
No,
this is a much more sort of a middle of the road.
Yeah, I would definitely give some kudos to Dr. Bill Morgan, the president of Parker, because I think it's with his pushing that this is drastically changing. That's my feel.
He that's what he wants,
right?
And that's exactly what he's trying to do. But you can't just change the whole ship overnight. I mean, this is a huge thing, and you can't just sort of say, okay, so for 65 years we've had this Parker seminar that focuses on the principles of Jim Parker, and then all of a sudden be like, okay, so let's introduce you to the SFMA,
right? And
we're only talking DNS all day long, but they're talking DNS tomorrow, and that's a start,
Yeah, and Greg Rose was speaking yesterday about TPI, and that TPI's medical model is based off the SFMA, so.
and he blew people's minds too. They're like, oh my God,
right?
And then all of a sudden, everyone wants to know who Greg Rose is.
Right, and that's a positive thing for the profession.
And then you bring in your token research guy.
Right.
This guy to my left over here. You got to bring in the heavy hitters to give it some legitimacy.
Yeah. Well, why don't you hand the mic to the heaviest of heavy hitters?
Where is he?
We couldn't get him, but you'll work pretty well, Dr. Raven. How are you?
I'm good. Don't call me doctor, please.
Okay. Sorry. Mr. Raven. Just kidding. So, Tim, can you give everybody an idea of your perception of what you see at this conference?
Yeah, I've been impressed. It's a good combination of positive change with regard to things that work in practice, things that we've seen over the years with SFMA and functional approach to people's health, and not just what I was hoping I wouldn't see, and I haven't seen, is the 10 visits a week for the rest of your life type of approach.
Right. I have, it's a great point. I haven't heard that mentioned one time.
No.
So that's pretty impressive. That
Intense care.
Yeah.
We haven't seen it.
Yeah. And I'm not hearing the words, corrective and healthy nervous system and things that we used to hear a lot. And it would look to me that a lot of these chiropractors are interested in the rehab. They're at all different spectrums on that or they're all different places on that spectrum, but the desire is certainly there.
Yeah. We did hear quantum today, but I think that's to be expected once in a while.
We did hear some large words in the final send-off session today, but I think they stick out partially because they are the exception and not the rule, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It is the exception.
Yeah. Well, can you give everybody a little bit of your background for those who don't know? I mean, most of our listeners definitely have the Researchers of the Year, Chiropractic Researchers of the Year calendar. And you are Mr. April?
August.
Mr. August, okay. Yeah. But for those who don't have that calendar and don't know, could you give them an idea who you are and what you're all about?
Who am I? Tim Raven, as you hear from the accent, I'm from Australia, Melbourne, Australia, very clearly from the accent, and lived for almost 20 years now in Norway. Research is interested in how the motor neurons and the deep muscles of the spine function and act in pain and in healthy subjects. What's the difference?
Okay, I got to ask on behalf of everybody, what in God's name is going on in Australia that all these researchers want to know about the deep muscles and pain? I mean, you, Mosley, Butler. Is Butler from Australia?
Yeah.
Yeah. What happened down there? Did people start was the mafia going around breaking spines? What occurred?
I didn't get interested until I moved to Norway. But
and everybody heard you're from Australia, so they assumed you knew about deep muscles and pain?
No, not at all. Not at all. We were motivated by a guy, an anesthesiologist, who was looking at how posture is controlled, or tonic muscle function is controlled in rats' leg muscles. And we wondered if this had something to do with the spine.
Yeah, actually, Tim was bringing this up last night at the bar, and I mean, the ladies were flocking. It was luckily Bobby was there to push them off. But
rat's legs is a good pickup line.
You talk about deep motor neurons, rat's legs, and research. I mean, I don't know why we did this in Vegas. It was a stupid move on our part, right?
No, it's a perfect place to do it.
Yeah. So you got interested in that, and where is that taking you? Connect me from rat's legs to a chiropractor, because you're still in clinical practice, right?
Yeah, and we did this in neck muscles and in low back muscles, and that's the connection with chiropractic. And because we leave our electrodes in place pre and post adjustment, we can see if there's changes.
And you're adjusting
to how the motor neurons are working.
You're adjusting rats, or is this human subjects as well?
Human subjects. Only human subjects.
Okay. Only human subjects.
Only human subjects.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
And can you give everybody a little synopsis? Not that this is, I think this might be a little entertainment, but let's do the 80% inspirational and 20% informational. Real quick, what can you tell our people to respect evidence-wise, since you've been slapping hands all day?
Yeah, well, the evidence is that there are changes to how the motor neurons function. It seems to be mostly local changes, not necessarily driven from above down, which is going to upset some people perhaps. But
hold on. Yeah, there's some people vomiting downstairs in the lobby.
We're talking mostly segmental changes. Can we leave it? We'll leave it at that, perhaps.
All right, go block the door, Bobby. They're going to storm. They're going to storm our room here in a second. Okay. And what does that mean clinically? So for the guy that's putting his hands on people every day for adjusting purposes, what does that really mean?
What he's doing is having an effect, and it's working, and he should keep on doing it.
Okay. So
it's of the things that people do.
So the chiropractic
manual treatment, manipulation adjusting,
works.
It works.
Okay. And it's effective for. It's an effective treatment, and that's backed by your research, not just with rat legs or whatever you were looking at, but in human beings as well.
Well, we don't do clinical research. We do basic science, but the clinical research has been done. Korchak's work shows that it works. There's responders who work. This works really well on. So we should keep using it.
Fantastic. And
it's cheap and it's effective.
Yeah, and you already got the tools, right? They're at the ends of your arms.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I was asking you yesterday of all the things that we see in this expo, and there's analgesics, there's lasers, there's pulsed EMP, there's what other? Do you see any modalities down there? Lasers,
thumpers,
vibration tools, sound waves,
shock waves.
Yep. Out of all that, you were kind of anecdotally telling me at lunch that the most evidence-based tools are manual therapy, manipulation, and a caring touch of a doctor.
And exercise.
Okay, and exercise. And somebody who, ironically, somebody who gives a shit.
Yeah.
Right?
So movement, manual therapy is either manipulation, mobilization, and being a caring practitioner.
Okay.
Those things work, get results.
And I asked you what the most evidence-based piece of equipment was, and you said, those tables over there are pretty evidence-based.
Yeah.
I like that.
Patients have to lie on something.
Yeah, it was a good response. I mean, nobody thinks about that stuff, but it's like, oh, yeah, that's great. So, all right, well, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Not Dr. Raven, but I'll just call you Tim.
Call me Tim.
All right, Tim. And Dr. Maybee, back to you.
He's good.
He is. Yeah, I mean, he just broke down, 74 years of staying in a dark basement
Didn't
researching.
mention once how that affects my cosmology or
cosmonology. Yes.
Or my quantum levels, which kind of disappoints me after this Parker Seminars experience.
Yeah.
By the way, we don't have to defend Parker Seminars at all. Like, it almost sounds like when we started this maybe we didn't have to defend Parker. We don't have to defend ourselves for being here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
Well, Tim doesn't because he's paid to be. He's speaking, so
yeah. they shipped him in,
but I think people should be here. Like, if you showed up, if you were an evidence-based chiropractor and you're sitting and poo-hooing these events, you should be here.
Right. It's
if you were here and you shared your voice and you talked to the vendors and you talked to William Morgan and you said, and you had the app, the Parker Seminars app, and you voted on what classes you liked and you didn't like, eventually they would hear it.
Right.
And then it would change.
And hopefully it's, on your podcast, you recently interviewed Charlie Weingroff.
Right.
And he had a great point. He said, go to these things and pull out the good. Don't just try and poo-poo everything, but pull out the good. And it should stretch you, because if you're not being stretched, if you're staying in your safe little zone of, if Tim only stays in the world of research, we're never going to get great research in the end, because you're not stretching to go, oh my gosh, what, that's changing my mind.
These could be great events for Tim, because then he could, as a researcher, find different questions to ask.
Right. Yeah. And
I mean, he might see these machines and the pulse things. I mean, the vendor caravan or expo or the hall with all the vendors completely fascinated me this weekend. There's so many different things that I've never used and I never thought to use.
And by the amount of business that they're getting or people that we're talking about, I'm thinking, I would pass a couple booths and I go, it appears this is well known in the industry. I've never heard of it, but it appears that this is well known and a lot of people are using it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, am I under a rock? Like, here I think, I'm in one of the largest chiropractic groups on Facebook, which is the FTCA. And yet it's like, oh yeah, that never gets mentioned in there.
And then you see what people want. Like you see what the doctors want. Like as we're there and we're walking around the expo hall, most of the vendors were somehow rehab based.
Yep.
There was a lot of sort of like how to answer questions about documentation
or how to send your patients home with, if you're giving them rehab, how to make it easy for them, whether it's through an iPhone or an app or a computer, like for them to actually learn their rehab and do it and then check in with you. I thought there was some great tools for that.
And if you don't think straight chiropractic is getting closer to its deathbed, there were so many analgesics there.
Yeah.
And for there to be so many analgesics at a place you might or might not consider to be a straight chiropractic event, which, like I said, it's not. Obviously, that doesn't fit that philosophy. There's a lot of like, what can we rub on people to help them feel better?
Right. And the last time I was here, there was I would say probably 2 or 3 times the number of, how would I say this? Marketing driven supplement companies.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't see them. They've either died or they're not, they're being banned from the show.
You know what else was missing? There was not a single booth that I could see that was chiropractic consulting based, like coaching based, like how to get more patients. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
those kinds.
Yeah.
They're not there.
Right. Yeah. I wonder what's happening to those groups. Are they being blocked? Well, is it Parker's credit they're being blocked, or is it that the profession is moving away from that idea?
The profession, I don't know. I mean, I don't know the answer to the question.
I gotta hope not,
I'm curious.
I'm consulting with people now, and am I at the wrong time? Yeah. But,
well, I think the consulting business has changed quite a bit. I think it's now it's more specifics driven. So you're not like consulting with somebody who wants to solve your questions along a broad base. Even Breakthrough Coaching has changed their philosophy of how they deliver their product. It's not like you hire me as a coach and then I'm going to show you everything.
Right.
It's you hire me as a coach to answer a very specific problem.
Right.
And that's when you should hire a coach anyways, is to answer specific problems.
Right.
Or specific challenges that you're trying to implement or understand.
I always think that with the SMA, you run the diagnostics, and when you find something you can't treat, that is what you should study next, because it's telling you clearly this is the reason that the person has a problem, but you can't do anything about it. Learn that. So you're saying in business, figure out where is your limitation. Is it marketing, or is it documentation? Do you keep getting hammered and no repayments because your documentation sucks? Great, go to a documentation seminar. And I love that approach.
What do you think are the challenges that these doctors that we sort of talk to have the most?
That's a great question, because I've been asking them lately, and the thing that bothers me the most, I think, would be the idea that there's a lot of chiropractors out there struggling financially, because you have an insurance model that's built off of a code that should be universal for all providers. And then when you choose to do a better job, in my mind, you spend a little bit more time diagnosing, a little more time doing rehab. Those things just take time. Like Tim said, you can't use the Neuro Laser 9000 and just do a 30-second treatment. They take time. And then these codes may not pay for that, or they may not reward you for taking that time. And so you're up against the ropes financially as a business owner. So, and then the flip side of it, I'm kind of going off the rails here, but I'm getting the idea that the message that was spread about what is a chiropractor in, say, 1995, just as an idea, is dwindling more and more, and it's fading away from the mindset of the public. But I don't think that the forward thinkers, I'll just use the Forward Thinking Chiropractic Alliance group, I don't think we've yet stepped up enough
to fill in that blank.
That's right. There's a vacuum of space, and it's like there is no message right now. There's no clear message. There was a clear message in 95. It wasn't the message we wanted, but it's certainly clear. What is a chiropractor? You go there, you're going to do a lot of visits, and it's going to last a long time. And now there's a vacuum, and I think it's a perfect opportunity to get out there and spread a message. Now that just statement coming out of my mouth, I always think like, man, should I be up on the stage motivating and everything? No, I'm not saying that. Like, patients need something to anchor onto.
But you should. I mean, if you think this is the right way to treat people,
right,
and the evidence supports it, and we're evidence driven, and we say, okay, so the best ways to treat people, manual therapies, exercise, mobility, and caring, listening, talking and understanding the patient are the best ways to do it.
Right.
And it's the best way to treat, well, let's get Parker. It's the best way to treat humanity on the most quantum level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then how can you not want to go out and make sure that that's the way it's done?
Yeah. I would say that marketing is the number one problem facing our profession right now, as in marketing the message of what we can do, marketing what we do to MDs who you talked to Jeff Langmaid, and I'm sure Tim would say the same thing. Like, we have this great tool for, let's just stick to the spine, neck, and low back pain. We have this great treatment modality for that, but we are not used at the highest, what do they call that? The uptake rate, like when MDs refer, utilization. Yeah, the utilization is not as high as it should be for what has, through research, proven to be one of the best treatment tools for this thing that they're seeing a ton of people with low back pain and neck pain, right?
Yep.
And yet we're not out there spreading the message enough of, hey, we can handle this, So,
to refer back to Parker Seminar and the theme of this weekend, if it is to be, it's up to me. Sorry.
Man.
I'm all about it, man. I'm up to
Yeah.
it. No, but personal responsibility. If the MDs don't know, whose fault is that? It's not.
It's not the MDs.
It's our fault,
Right.
And if the patients don't know what to do or what we expect when they walk into a chiropractic practice, that's our fault.
And it's funny, like the old style.
If the insurance companies can't respect what we're doing and pay us appropriately, that's our fault. It's not their fault. There's no conspiracy.
Right. But as a professional, have we done a good job of swimming upstream and going, hey, let me show you what we can do when I bill 97112, here's what I mean by that. Now you're telling the insurance company you're angry because of what people billed 8, 9, 20 years ago that they were abusing that, but observe my office. Shit, I'll put in a camera and show you what I'm doing every day to show you what exercises, what we're billing those codes for, and then you tell me if that fits your model, if that's what you want. Because I think it is, but with the way you pay me, I don't think you think it is. Like you don't have it, but they don't have the evidence. We're not marketing that message to them to say this is the best way.
Well, you have to show up. Right? You have to, and showing up doesn't mean just coming to events. Right. And it doesn't mean dancing in the aisles when someone says something you like. Showing up means you have to pull out your checkbook and you have to commit yourself to things. You have to commit yourself to the profession, to the process, to the political realm. You have to put your money down for research. Maybe you don't put your money down on all that stuff, but whatever you're into, if you're into it, put your money where your mouth is and get involved.
I think a perfect
money
analogy,
or time. You got to do some fucking thing, money or time.
Yeah,
one or the other.
Yeah, there has to be energy behind it. You can pay for the energy, you can produce it yourself, but it has to be. I think a microcosm of this is we mentioned Greg Rose before, and that man is great about marketing because he truly believes what he does is the best thing for golfers, right?
Right. It's seamless and
he talks about it everywhere he can.
Yeah.
And if the, Professional Golf Association of Southern Louisiana asks, hey, will you come speak at this thing? He goes, yes, I will. And I'd be happy to do it. And then there was a time when there were some issues in the, political realm of USGA, of the golf overseeing organization. And it was like, hey, there's some political issues. And they said, okay, let's deal with those. Let's talk about them. Let's get them out in the open and actually deal with them and not just sit here and get upset 2 years from now when there's some decision made. And go, oh, they made this decision, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, like you could have been a part of it, I mean, most chiropractic state associations aren't so big that anybody listening can't be involved with it within 5 years from now.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
I mean, maybe in California, maybe in Florida, you can't, but I
still
think
could, though.
40 states have got to be soft.
There were tons of stories today of people who are on the stage who were like, they were there as a student 1 year.
Right.
And they said, I want to be on the stage within a year. They made the goal. Yeah. And they did what it took. And they asked the people, what does it take to get on stage? These Parker guys, they have like an event tomorrow at lunch where they say, you think you want to be on the stage? Come on up to our little event and test yourself.
Very nice. And the researcher has something, yes?
Yeah. As well as being a researcher, I used to be the president of the European Council on Chiropractic Education.
Nice.
And the only way I got into that,
you moved to Europe
back in 2007, was I asked, how do I get involved?
And then you actually did something about it after that?
I did something about it. I went to a training day. They had so many places for trainees. From Norway, they took my wife because they had both a female quota and only one per country. And I said, well, what if I pay my own way? Can I go as well? So I paid for myself to go to the training day. And they saw that I was interested. I got onto the board and I became president.
Wow. And what do people, what do you think some of the perception is now of people seeing you when you were president? Did they go, oh, that's just because he knows people?
No, I don't think at all. That's what happened. I got to know people because I was president. I didn't have I had an academic background as opposed to an educational background, but the educationalists appreciated the fact that I was very upfront and prepared to do the work.
Nice.
So if people aren't prepared to do the work, aren't prepared to contribute, then they also should keep their mouths shut and stop complaining.
It sounds so even-keeled when you say it, Tim, but if we can get Bobby to get, a little tipsy and just start yelling into the microphone, maybe that'll be enough motivation to actually change. Yeah.
I can't. You can't lead a horse to water here. You can't. Like, they have to want to do this. William Morgan, I hope you listen to this podcast because I'd like to thank you. And I'll thank you in addition to this podcast. The guy is doing something, man.
Oh, yeah.
But when he's
pushing about as hard as you can push for an academic organization, any academic organization on the face of the earth, to make a major change is is
Well, it's two things. He's got the academic organization, and then he has Parker Seminars,
the professional arm,
which is like it's a whole different business where he has different responsibilities as a CEO. He's got to make money, and he's got to please a board and all this other
Right.
stuff. But he brought me here, and I saw something, and I see something in my group. I see something in the FTCA. I see 5,000 people,
right?
Who, when and it's part of my leadership when I bring up that I'm at Parker Seminars and the jokes start rolling in and the eyes start rolling. They go, well, yeah, there's plenty of stuff to sort of poke at here that you can laugh at. But there's also, I would say there was about 10% that I could poke at. And Tim would agree with me because he's been sitting with me almost this whole weekend.
Right.
There's about 10% where I've kind of gone like, oh, geez, come on, man. And then there's been about, let's be honest, about 70% where I'm like, okay, there's something I can take home there. And then there's just 30% where I'd rather just be drinking a beer. But, there's stuff here that you can take. Yeah. But you don't know if you don't go, and you can't change any of it. You can't change how much your whole situation sucks unless you do something active about it.
I remember back in the day, the first time I was in a room of 4 people at I won't mention the seminar I was at, but it was a soft tissue modality, and somebody brought up DNS, and I remember everybody there is like, you don't need that. Like, you just need to have better manual therapy skills, and I made the mistake of going, they're right. Like you just got to be better with your hands. And I thought it was a joke. Like when you hear about this stuff and you go on the website and it's like this old website, it's got a picture of a dude working on an infant on the top. I'm like, oh God, like what is this crap? Like, come on. Like, and it's from the Prague School of Rehab, which I remember for a second, I thought, Prague my foot. That's probably Prague, Pennsylvania. Some dude's in his basement faking this out. You just throw a couple, they
got everyone in their underwear in the pictures and yeah.
And I'm like, oh, what is this? Now, smash cut 2 years later, and I'm talking to, I believe it was either Charlie Weingroff or Jeff Kubos, and they're going, oh my God, DNS changed my rehab skills. I totally, it completely changed the way I diagnose. And then Jimmy Ewan walked up and he's like, oh yeah. And they're talking about this. And now I'm the odd man out for not having even just believed in it. These guys have gone to like 2 or 3 classes and invested the money when it was not easy to find a DNS seminar. And all 3 of those guys are incredible and forward thinking, and they're delivering the best care. And they're way ahead of their time because they didn't have a mindset of, oh, that's stupid, or, what could that, I just need to get better at this. They actually questioned themselves, said, is there something there? What is the positive?
Yeah, and Charlie's the shining example of that. Even if he thinks something's completely stupid, he's still going to go check it out. Right.
And that guy could get free seminars all day long, and yet he pays for a lot of seminars because he wants to go experience something else. I mean, look at Tim. Like Tim, he is sitting through every presentation, everything that, you have a more critical eye than Bobby or anybody here probably, and yet
I'll give you that.
Yeah. Give you that. You got a more critical eye, but your mouth is not nearly as
I'm not as sharp as Bobby.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that.
He has got nice eyes though.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. But to your credit, Tim, it'd be easy for a researcher to just dismiss almost everything because it's like, oh, I can find fault in everything. Right?
Without trying to brag, I go to a lot of conferences and seminars each year, and I generally attend what's there to be attended. What's the point of being there if you're just going to sit in your room, or in Vegas go out and play the
Right. I think
machine.
That might be a core value of yours, hence why you're a researcher, is I need the information. Yeah. It may or may not come through, but I'll try it.
Yeah. And I think it's important to get as diverse input as possible.
Nice.
That's a good sound though.
I was trying to hide that, but we might have a couple cocktails here. Has there been anything at this seminar, by the way, that did pique your interest, as in like either I've never heard of that, or they might have something there, or that's worth researching because maybe so sometimes research is best when it's the ease of use of what they're talking about could change a profession. I mean, there are plenty of things that are research, but they're just not clinically worthwhile because they're so cumbersome or something.
Yeah. There's been some talk of cold laser that I think is interesting modality. I don't think yet the evidence is there whether it's as good as people say it is, but
it's freaking laser beams, Tim.
Yeah,
they're that good.
They're that good. It's laser beams.
You haven't seen any movies where
I saw The
Incredibles.
There was a guy with laser beams in his eyes.
Yeah.
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 Well, that's okay. That's what it's about.
The Death Star takes out a planet, man.
Must be good then.
Yeah, no, but that's a hot laser. It's way too
It's
high.
hot?
Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah.
I mean, the place explodes, so I'm just
okay.
guessing it's high.
Yeah.
But
So there was a bit of talk about that. The stuff that I've seen, it hasn't been earth-shattering, but then this isn't a research conference, so I don't
Right.
expect it to be earth-shattering.
right,
I expect it to be down to day-to-day skills that clinicians can use.
okay. So let me ask you a question along those lines. How well do you think the research that you're seeing is what you would consider current research is being disseminated rate-wise compared? It's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect, right?
No.
But what is it now compared to what it was 10 or 20 years ago when you first got in the profession and saw it? Is the dissemination happening faster or better?
I tell you what, people are more happy to use things that are going to make them money than are necessarily what's going to help.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
People are more prepared to use modalities and techniques that are money-driven or economically driven than necessarily evidence-based.
Okay. You thinking that's worse now than it was 20 years ago?
I think it's the same.
Oh, okay. Well,
I've been in practice for nearly 30 years.
so what you're
and I
saying
don't
is
think
it hasn't gotten worse.
I don't think it hasn't gotten worse. I don't think it's changed a lot.
Okay.
We're gradually incorporating evidence into our practices. People who call themselves evidence-based practitioners
Right.
in a lot of cases, don't understand what that means.
They don't have the evidence to support that name.
Well, they think because they've seen it in one paper, then that's their evidence-based. Or they've read a case study, or it's more than that. And we should be
It's incredibly time-consuming to be evidence-based.
Well, not really, because what we're getting down to is, should we be looking at individual RCTs or should we be looking at systematic reviews and meta-analysis? And that's where the evidence is that we should be basing, and guidelines.
Okay. You say again. Hey,
and
hold
read
on.
guidelines.
The chicks are going to start knocking down the door again.
Yeah,
okay,
I know.
So just
it's not sexy.
keep the research language low.
Research isn't sexy. I do stick needles in people's backs while they're awake.
right.
That's kind of sexy.
If you're into that kind of thing, man, in Norway, that's that Norway stuff, man. But I think there's this thing. Do you guys notice this? Let me just ask this question. With these modalities that you're saying are economically driven, or they have really good marketing behind them, are they more effective sometimes because it's not just a dog and pony show for the doctor here? That dog and pony show goes to their office, right?
Yeah.
And if I can wave the laser beam at you, my perception is if I do some manual therapy and then throw some orange goggles on the patient and laser beam them for 30 seconds, that their perception of that care is going to be much higher than...
You're tapping into the contextual effect, which is really improving the value of your care, which is important.
All right.
But we've got to do it in an ethical way. So
Okay.
we can't just have a flashing lights to impress patients.
Okay.
It also has to have some ethical framework. So the balance would be, or the opposite end of the spectrum is homeopathy, which has fantastic contextual effects, but has no ethical framework to it. There's no biological plausibility. So as long as you've got biological plausibility, then you've got
You're the heartbreaker, man.
Yeah.
You just broke some hearts, I'm sure.
Sorry.
There. No, that's fine with me. But
do you have a lot of homeopaths who listen in?
I don't think we do. But I can't imagine there's nobody listening that doesn't work closely with a homeopathic practitioner.
No, I struggle with the concept that water can remember onion juice from being diluted a million times.
It's toxins, man.
He is Australian by nature, and they are supremely skeptical. In America, we don't have like true homeopaths.
Oh no?
No, there's naturopathic doctors.
Yeah.
I would stand up for some good.
Oh yeah, there's no recognized profession here. There is in Australia.
Australia, England.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they have like homeopaths there.
All right.
But
we have homies here.
we have some homies. I've got a couple homies.
Yeah, sure.
And there are probably some other jokes there.
We've got
somewhere.
psychopaths.
And we've got cosmonauts and all
Yeah.
that. But there aren't like true, like the only homeopathy you're going to see is probably a multi-level marketing stuff, which is nonsense anyways.
Yeah.
But there are naturopathic doctors, and I think they get unfairly sort of blended in there. You did not. You're kind of smirking, though. You're smirking at the naturopaths. But naturopaths are also getting the short end of the stick, too, because they also, in the same vein, need to sort of step up their work. Naturopaths to me are at the same level of a pediatric chiropractor in the fact that they probably do really great things for their patients, and a lot of it is contextual, but they have no desire whatsoever to ever justify what they're doing through evidence-based protocols.
And that's going to be a tough human trial, right? A pediatric. I mean, is that something in the research? Other pediatric human trials?
They've done quite a few human pediatric trials.
Oh, really?
For crying babies and various things. But yeah, it's tough.
Can you put some needles in some spinal segments?
Not on kids, no. I like my subjects to be able to consent to being part of the trial.
Right. Yeah. Well, parental consent's fine for treatment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nice.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Not a question, but I want to bring it back to DNS because I think you hit on something. DNS to me always has been ephemeral. I don't want to have to define that for you, Josh, but it like hard to sort of grasp. Like it becomes sort of aloof on some level.
Yeah, I think it's on the outer circle of what I would consider like
it's not as digestible.
Esoteric.
Esoteric, yeah. If the DNS people could make it a little bit more approachable, I think it would have a huge impact.
Right.
I think sometimes Ben Fergus gets some grief for his grip approach, which uses DNS concepts. And then the DNS folks get upset that he's teaching the DNS concepts.
Right.
If we can say names, hopefully, Ben will forgive me for bringing up his name and his approach. But what he has done is made it approachable. Like people can...
It's an entry point, right?
It's an entry point, yes.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things where if you enter, and I think to that point, if you notice when DNS was hitting this kind of critical mass of growth within clinicians, I personally saw a lot more of these. It went from a 3-day DNS-A to let's do a 1-day DNS, how it applies to running, how it applies to golf. And these shorter, kind of light seminars of, hey, let's just get you a little interested, stir your pot a little bit, and you'll probably come back to us, which a lot of people did. But it was that taster session of, wow, that's really different. I can use that.
Now, and I think that the functional movement system, as it's arranged, also does a good job of that. They must have learned a lesson somewhere there that you can sort of be introduced to the functional movement screen, and then as a clinician, you can evolve into the SFMA.
Sure.
I think a lot of people got introduced that way.
Right.
A few years ago, they were mostly doing the FMS first, and then getting into the SFMA.
Yeah. And early on, SFMA included a lot of rehab exercises and all that, and they said it's too much. Let's pull that out and let's just do diagnostic one weekend. When you feel comfortable with that, come back, do some exercise, and we'll be good. And I think that is exactly what you're talking about. Because you have to respect the fact you're talking with human beings who can only uptake this so fast and then can only implement it so fast in their practice.
Here's an idea, Tim. I got an idea. I'm done with my Blue Moon Belgian white ale here. And what if it doesn't have to be you, of course, but I'm trying to give you the $1 million idea here. Had some sort of course or concept where you can introduce people into the concepts of research and how to apply research in a very tangible manner so that they're not overwhelmed with how to either conduct or digest or
I'll tell you the thing that intimidates me, Tim, is forging your own path. I mean, there is so much research. If you just go on to PubMed, like where do you go? What question do you ask? What do you look for? And it's just like when you're learning rehab, it's like, yeah, I can rehab your ankle and your knee, your shoulder. Somebody's sitting there saying that, and I'm like, how? Like, what's your system? I don't understand what you're saying. I don't understand your language. And they're going, oh, it's easy. You just use these principles. I'm like, well, then they break it down easy enough for you, and you go, okay, this is where you start, and this is the path you stay in.
Yeah. Great idea, Bobby. I think if you could do that, that would be the $1 million enterprise, because clinicians want to be able to understand it, but they find it too boring to sit through it. And there's been efforts at introducing critical literature reading and being able to appraise literature. But clinicians have a busy day. They shouldn't have to do it anyway. If they want to read one paper every now and again, they should be able to pick out whether it's a good paper or a bad paper, but they shouldn't have to read through individual papers. They should, as I was saying before, they should be going to guidelines, and there's clinical guidelines for just about anything you want to do.
Right.
And we should be reading the clinical guidelines because that's
the problem is
pre-digested.
Those guidelines were written by researchers, brother.
Yeah, but
they're in research language.
But they're summarized. There's always a summary of the guidelines, which is written for clinicians.
All right. So
in clinician language.
So for those people out there who are listening going, well, I've read enough research. I looked at, and really they've looked at 3 research articles over the last 18 months. Low back pain, what would you say are some guidelines that, and I'll give you a second to prep here. What are some guidelines that you could tell us right now that would tell that person, is your compass truly pointing at north, or are you assuming that you're going north and really you're sailing, northeast, because sometimes we have to reset ourselves and go, I didn't realize I was that far off.
Well, the latest guidelines that have been produced have come from the US and Europe, Denmark and the UK.
Could you give us a link to this that we could put in our show notes?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Tim will give us a link to this, so there should be something in the show notes.
And there's also been some summary papers of the best guidelines, one from the Canadian Medical Journal by an author called Traeger. And the big thing with guidelines in the last 10 years that wasn't there before for acute low back pain, non-pharmacological. Acute neck pain, non-pharmacological. It says so in the guidelines.
Okay.
Stay away from pharmacological therapies to begin with.
And these are not chiropractic research papers. These are just general pop research papers.
These are spinal researchers. Okay. We had
I'm asking because of course the chiropractic journals are going to say stay away from pharmacology.
This we had in Oslo in September. We had the low back and neck pain forum, which is all the top spinal researchers in the world. If a bomb had gone off in Oslo, spinal research in the world would have been set back 30 years. And at that conference, the focus was on non-pharmacological manual therapies are useful, advice, talking to people, minimal care to start with, and keep people moving through exercise. And that's basically what they said was, we don't want to admit it, but chiropractors are pretty much the best first line of treatment. Chiropractors don't get mentioned because we're tiny. We're meaningless in the world of healthcare.
Not really, Bobby and me. We got to have 500 pounds at least between us. We can go make an impression downstairs. You're a lightweight researcher. You got to be pushing what, 160, 170?
And my 80 kilos, whatever that translates to.
By American standards, you're almost an infant. Almost, yeah.
So we're essentially chiropractors are doing the right thing. We're doing non-pharmacological.
Yeah.
And we're treating people. There has been a tendency to overtreat.
Okay. But I think like what we said earlier in this conversation, I'm not hearing the twice a week for 17 weeks anymore. No,
that's changing. So we're doing the right things. We just got to keep doing it.
Okay.
But we've got to make the other professions aware through good collaboration with medical practitioners, through physiotherapists, that we're doing the right things.
Right. So we are literally the tip of the spear as far as what the research says the skill set should be.
Yep.
So everybody listening, you're ahead. You think that you're not ahead. You are actually ahead in this race because the research is determining the best practices, and we just happen to have a skill set that matches up perfectly.
If we, as a profession, choose to treat what 90% of the patients come to us for, and that's spinal pain.
Okay.
If we want to be everything else...
Yeah. I was just talking to somebody about this. So this is the funny thing.
If we want to be everything else... But
the best way to get you to trust me to treat your knee is if you come in for something you already trust me for, aka spine.
Yep.
And we build a relationship, and you trust, like and trust me. You like my front desk staff. It's easy to get in my office.
Yep.
And I go, oh, your knee, that's something we can help you with. It's not a huge, what do you call that? It doesn't have to go above the line of super credibility. It's just like, okay, that sounds reasonable.
It's not a leap of faith, is it?
Yeah. It's just, hey, that's what it, but stick to coming in for spine pain, and you probably will have a massive amount of success, right?
Indeed.
When I go to talk at least to other health professionals, stick to spine, and you're going to have a ton of success.
Yeah.
Because the research may not be there yet for us to be leading knee pain research or knee pain treatment, right?
We do the right things there as well.
Yeah, but it's
mostly.
But in spine, it's we've got the stamped and seal of approval.
We've
right?
got the skill set, we've got the knowledge, we've got the diagnostic skills,
and we have the public perception that that's what we do. So why not grab onto that and just move forward, and then do the other ancillary services based on this relationship, not based on the marketing, right?
Indeed,
that's awesome. It goes back to something you said about the Bobby. It goes back to spreading that message, right? And whose fault is it that we have the skill set and everything, but we're not getting the usage or utilization?
Well, let's not confuse the conversation that happens though with the straight chiropractic side. Where you're talking about knee pain, and that it doesn't take a big leap in trust or logic. That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about keeping treatment window open and what they would call as a broader scope, which really means just keeping the window open to the possibility of miracles.
Right.
You know, and they might not even say anything specifically condition wise, but you know, it's like the ADHD, the asthma, the bowel or bladder, it's like that's what they're talking about. Is like they don't want to minimize their scope of practice to just the spine because it would eliminate their ability to sell the miracle.
Yeah.
But
that sand is running through their fingers right now, right? Like,
well, of course, because I mean, there's this thing called the internet and Dr. Google, and like the world is getting smart. I mean, I don't know if the world's getting smarter per se, but they are getting much more access to information, and they're just becoming smarter consumers, and they know that to some degree. Doesn't mean there aren't type O miracles. It doesn't mean there aren't unique things that'll happen as you see when you treat patients, but you can't sell you can't sell that pipe dream. You can't front load it.
Okay.
You know, we can all have conversations, say we've seen stuff in practice, and that's awesome. But that doesn't mean the next thing you do is put up a Facebook ad saying believe in miracles. You know, you can say to your next patient, be like, you know, I see some strange stuff and I'm not sure what happens or why.
Right.
We have some theories of why, you know, if I work on your spine, you might feel better with your tummy aches or your stress or your asthma and things like that. But I'm not really sure why. But I'm really happy for you that it worked out that way. Now let's get back to our goals.
Yeah.
One thing did disturb me about this weekend, and I will say names.
Okay.
There was a portion at the end of the first evening where this Dr. Brad Glowacki was speaking, and he's talking to the crowd about how to discuss things with patients. And one of the things one of his patients says, or one of the ways he approaches patients is he will say, the patient saying, you know what, doc, with this treatment, I'm feeling great. I'm really starting to feel really good. And he was instructing the crowd. It wasn't passive. It wasn't sort of a flippant joke. He was instructing the crowd to say, and he had them repeat back to him that the thing you say when your patient says they're starting to feel good is, I'm really concerned. Now you have me concerned. As in that a patient's personal goal, you know, it totally took the patient-centered conversation out of the picture and made it completely doctor-centric, which totally pisses me off.
Yeah,
like Glad Glowacki, whatever your name is, you fucking piss me off, because that is not what we want to do as chiropractors. We want to be patient-centered and patient-focused, and we want to center. If that patient's goal was to feel better. Among other goals that you might make, like spinal stability, range of motion, ability to functional capacity increases,
right?
Whatever your personal goals are, if that was one of their goals, you have to honor that goal. But instead, he's saying, no, you go back to the nerve chart and point to that and say, I understand you feel better, but you still have all these problems that we need to work on, so keep coming back. I get disturbed by that stuff.
Yeah, that is frustrating.
And so that message was still here this weekend.
Yeah.
And you know, all credit to Parker. You can't control all the messages, but I had to call that one out as I saw it.
As you are apt to do.
And you know, people get offended in this profession when you call people out by name, but I'm not afraid to. I wore those big black boots for a reason.
That's right. You wore high top boots so that
high top boots. Yep.
They can be wiped off easily. So in case there was a lot of excrement on the floor.
And there wasn't as much as I expected. So.
Right. Yeah. So next year you can show up in Chuck Taylor's, man. You don't even need boots.
I feel like I'm kind of safe. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is great. And And you know, what, I don't know how to say this. I want to be tactful here, but
it is your show.
I know, but you know, like you said at the beginning, it's evident to me that based on the research I'm hearing from Tim and I'm hearing from other people, based on what is available to us, whether we're talking about DNS or anything that's even not so ethereal, like, you know, what the standard bearers are, there's never been a better time to be a chiropractor, you know?
Have you read Murphy's book, The Crisp?
No.
At least the low back one, volume 1?
No.
Even just reading the intro lays out a perfect map for the future of chiropractic that sets a stage for domination.
Tell me the name again.
Clinical Reasoning in Spine Pain, CRISP. CRISP
Okay.
Protocols. Don Murphy, right? Not Dan. Correct. Yep. Don Murphy.
Was Dan Murphy the guy that ran in the decathlon for the Olympics? Remember that? Dan and Dave, or
Was that
well.
Dan? I don't know which Dan that one, but
Yeah.
he but even the beginning sets a great tone for our possible avenue into whatever you want to call it, increased market share.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, as we understand, low back pain is an epidemic.
right?
If you want to focus on the low back specifically. And the problem with low back interventions is that most people, at least in North America, I'm not sure how it is in Europe, take a supermarket approach to it. They'll try a little bit of chiropractic. They'll try a little bit of pharmaceuticals. They'll try over-the-counter medication. They'll try acupuncture, massage. They'll go to physical therapy. They're bouncing around all over the place and not getting effective one-stop professional focused care in these evidence-based ways that will do the job for them, and they don't know it. And they have no idea where to go. And nobody is standing up and saying, that's the place you need to go, because they'll get the job done the right way.
Yeah.
And even in our own profession where we could do it, people still are reluctant to do it.
And by the way, that is even more evidence that you got to be freaking good at what you do. Because when you're talking about the supermarket approach, they're not going to take, you know, analgesic cream or NSAIDs or whatever after they saw you because they don't have pain, right? Like if they have pain, like don't be some sort of, what do you call that when you're just so single-minded saying my treatment's the only way? Like do anything you can to get them out of pain because you're dealing with a human being there. And I think a lot of people are like, no, chiropractic. And then they go, well, I take ibuprofen. And sometimes they even look down on the patient. It's like, dude, you would do the same thing in their case.
Right, you would.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like you would be asking, hey, can you treat me? Can you do this? Can you do that? I'm going to get in the spa. I'm going to swim at the gym. I'm going to do everything I can. You do everything, you know? And just use that as a marker to go, hey, you know, I didn't hit this one. This wasn't a walk-off grand slam, but it was a solid double off the wall. Let me see if I can maybe improve, you know?
And at least get that part right and then expand.
Yeah.
So then, okay, so you've established yourself as an expert in the treatment of low back pain and low back disorders.
Right.
Okay, then what comes after that? Let's make you stronger. Let's make you more healthy.
Right.
Let's focus on your health.
Right.
Let's get you into some fitness. Let you understand nutrition.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to involve that primary care provider and say, hey, I'm treating this person, but they could really use your pharmacological help because I can't seem to get them over that hump, right? Like show that person that you respect what they do and you're going to do everything you can. But when there is that limit, don't just think, hey, I'm going to keep this person for me. Involve them, right? I hope that's okay, Tim. Can we involve them at certain levels?
Just thumbs up. Yep.
All right,
Just the
that's good.
thumbs
Yeah,
up.
I got 2 thumbs up there, not just one.
And when you are such a small profession, which Tim hit on, and which I don't think chiropractors understand because we are somewhat self-absorbed in what we're doing.
That's awesome. I mean, we're the most humble of all professionals, right? Like if there was a ranking system of humility, we'd obviously be number 1.
Right. We are the best.
We get an award for our humility.
The best of the. Yeah. We are the best of
the smallest.
The most amazing.
But we have the biggest.
We are
ego
only
for the smallest
profession because we are so gifted that the rest of the world does not understand the gift we have.
Right. Yeah.
If we were just more on purpose, and more
everybody
certain,
doesn't play in the Olympics, dude.
I'm telling you what I'm learning from Parker seminars. If we were just more on purpose and certain about what we were doing, the whole world would understand.
It's like being in the room with Jim Parker himself.
They're so close-minded.
Yeah.
They can't see what we're trying to do here.
You got to move your hands bigger.
No,
open up your arms.
Of all those professionals that take the basic sciences of chemistry, physics, organic chemistry, anatomy, and physiology, there are millions and millions and millions of them on the planet, and there's a couple 100,000 chiropractors.
Yeah.
It's like 0.5% of the whole healthcare profession world.
But again, to say there's never been a better time to be a chiropractor when the researcher is telling you that we have the skill set to treat what condition is at epidemic proportions.
Yes.
So that's a perfect matchup, perfect marriage. And you have a group of people, in my experience, I deal with physical therapists, I deal with chiropractors. Professionally, I've taught SFMAs, and I've probably taught 2,500 professionals, a mix of, it's usually about 2/3 PTs and 1/3 chiros. And the chiropractors are a lot more willing to be engaging, get out in their community, speak in front of groups, put on workshops, do all those things.
People love what you do. They like it.
But in PT, there's this idea like, hey, I can't do that until I have a doctor's referral.
Right. Yeah. Well, they're it's a whole different.
They're a little gun shy, and we don't have that limit. And we have a license that says you can do anything, you can do so much, and almost anything you want as long as you don't break the law. But you can treat pediatrics if you want. You can treat low back pain. You can be the #1 chiropractor for plantar fasciitis if you want. Then nobody's holding you back, right?
Right.
We can do all those things. But when we're really good at this one thing, which is low back pain, and that's at epidemic proportions,
why not honor it and be really fucking good at it?
Right. And then do the other stuff after you form that relationship.
If it is to be, it's up to me.
Dude,
I'm changing it.
You're killing me. Yeah.
If it is to do, it's up to you.
Ooh, even better.
That little twist right there. But
what's the saying? There is no I in team, but there's an I in win.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And victory.
Yeah. And a lot of things. So we've gone a lot of places here, but I think it's up to the chiropractors. If you have a license as a DC and you want things to change, #1, I think everybody in this room would give you permission. Go market the hell out of yourself for what the evidence says we're great at and what matches up with what the people around us in healthcare need. They need help with this. Nurses, doctors, MDs, DOs, orthopedic surgeons, they don't want to deal with this low back pain because they don't have a skill set that matches up. And as a person, they probably don't feel like they're doing their patient a service. I mean, everybody in healthcare, nobody went into it going, you know what? This is the best thing to make a ton of money, not work very hard, keep my hours short, and have an exponential growth model. No, you do that. That's if you're a stockbroker.
It'd be like if someone walked into your chiropractic office with a toothache.
Right.
And they're like, help me with my toothache.
Yeah, and it's somebody you care about. You want to help them. You're like, I wish I had something for you.
You don't have the tools. You don't have the tools. So it's better to make.
But if there's a dentist across the street, you could send him there, especially if that dentist has come over and been like, hey, Bobby, let's have lunch a couple times.
Make a network. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, so get out there and market yourself. That's #1. #2, evidence supports what we're doing. There's never been a better time. Any suggestions there on marketing? We're going to take marketing advice from a researcher here, Bobby. This is going to be awesome. Ready?
Also a clinician. I come from a European. We can't market ourselves to. We can't do testimonials. We can't do all that sort of stuff, and we have to be a bit humble.
Okay,
otherwise we get the health authorities taking our licenses away.
We're the most humble. I want you to know that.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah,
the best of being humble.
Yeah,
definitely.
By far, #1 humble
in the humble Olympics.
Oh yeah, we'd win gold, obviously.
Gold,
shiny. Yeah,
unless it was the Winter Humble Olympics, and it'd be Norway.
Okay, well, I don't know. But okay, so you can't market yourself.
Yeah, of course we can, but we have to be a little bit more.
But if the chains were off, dude.
Oh.
If you were here in the States, what would you do?
Oh. No, I'd be going crazy on spine pain. I'd be going crazy on back pain, neck pain. That's what we're good at. That's what we do. That's what the evidence supports.
And you could send out one research paper a week supporting the fact that we're great at that for how long until you'd run out?
I don't type that fast. I need students to write them for me.
Yeah, okay, we can get you those.
Yeah. The evidence.
You're a researcher. Don't act like you haven't exploited students in the past. Okay, like everybody knows the deal.
I'd love to be able to exploit students. We've got it made. Really, if we just want to do the hard work, we have got it made. There is a huge demand.
Yep. And
#1 cause of years with disability is back pain. Number 4 cause is neck pain.
Wow.
In the world, in the US, in Europe, in Africa, it's the same.
And we have a group like Parker Seminars who's trying to get the best people in the world to talk about what you should do next and keep you inspired, keep you happy, but learn a lot. I mean, I've learned from everybody up on the stage, but also it's not bad to have a little bit of motivation moving forward and reset your goals and think, the world is our oyster. It really is. Because if every chiropractor, I don't know the market, but do some quick math here. If every chiropractor that's listening to this podcast multiplied their practice by 10, so this number of people that is in their practice, they multiplied that by 10, I don't think that we're going to still have a utilization problem. We still won't be at full.
No.
We won't be treating all the people. We won't be treating half the people with low back pain, right?
No, there's still problems. There's not enough chiropractors, but we don't just need numbers. We need quality.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying, like as an illustration, yeah. You got to be great, because if that person's coming into you, they're not going to come back if you're not doing anything for them.
That's quite right.
Yeah. So, excuse me. So follow the research, market the hell out of yourself, unless you're in Europe, and then be respectful.
Yeah,
but you're not in Europe if you're listening to this, so don't worry about it. But seriously, we have this huge opportunity in front of us, and things like the Forward Conference in Kansas City. What were the dates again?
June 1st through 3rd, 2018.
Yep.
Cleveland Chiropractic College, Kansas City.
Yep. And I think that is literally the stake. I think that is sticking a stake in the ground, raising the flag, and saying, hey, this profession is changing, and this is the first sign that it's gutsy enough to make that change.
We were bringing some brass cojones to the show. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So if people don't have their tickets, by the way, get your tickets now. You can even get your picture taken with Bobby.
Oh, we should do something like that, right?
Yeah. $10 donation to take your picture.
No, we should not do that.
Yeah.
That is
and
not good.
If
I am not photogenic. I have a voice for podcast, a face for podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. But, and if you're lucky, if you can find him, you can get your picture taken with Tim, but he's very shifty. Yeah. You won't be able to pin him down at that Forward Conference. You think, the research says that he's tough to get a picture of.
I don't have a mic drop exit. I think I'm going to give Parker seminars an A.
A, yeah.
I would give it a good solid A.
And by the way, next year, so this is a 3-day conference, just from a financial standpoint, I think they're selling tickets next year for $99.
Yeah, but if you bought them today, like right now and tomorrow, yeah.
Right, but let's say it's twice. Let's say it's $200 after if you're not at the seminar. 3 days of education for $200 is like, come on. I mean, it's how can you not do it? And we're in Vegas, so you can bring the wife, or you can bring your staff. I mean,
yeah.
I gotta say this. This is something
they
that
do
gets
like
me.
A staff thing. It's like big.
But you know what's weird? I only see the straights doing that. I only see the straights bring
their staffs. They have like a whole staff
right, and they make
training
this an event.
And,
So I used to take my gym staff to the Perform Better Summit. It's like a 3-day summit down in Long Beach.
Right.
We'd go there every year, and it was like 8 sessions a day. You hear from Todd Durkin and Gray Cook and Dan John and all that. And what that did for my team was unbelievable, because it was our little getaway every year, our retreat.
There's a slight ideological difference between, I think, some of the straight chiropractors and the evidence-based ones. Mm-hmm. The evidence-based chiropractors have this block in their mind that they are the linchpin of the whole office.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
Right.
That they do the therapies, everything runs through them.
They're the only ones that know the rehab.
They are the only ones that know what they're talking about.
Right.
And the staff is just there to do the non-essential stuff like sweep the floor, clean the bathroom, call the patients back.
Yep.
The straight chiropractors, what we see, and there was plenty of message so far this weekend, is the doctor does what's most doctor essential, and you need to empower and then delegate to your staff and bring them up and give them some sort of purpose.
Right. And for, I think, $300, you can pay for everybody in your staff to come here. And there's courses for CAs.
Yeah.
And hell, even if the course is not worth it, for you to look at your CA and go, hey, it's worth it for me to pay for you.
Take them to dinner and, Hey, I'm
going to pay for some education, because I don't know what percentage but in my experience, not many doctors are educating their admin staff.
Right. Correct.
And just saying, hey, I'm going to honor you because I believe in you so much. I want to see your future expand. I'm going to pay for your education, and I'm going to pay for your flight and come out here. What's the downside? Besides the cost, and it's about as affordable as you can be. What's the downside?
Right. Well, everyone, you can make something. You can say, well, we have to close the office, and we got to do this, and blah, 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 and and everyone's going to come up with something, but I don't know, man.
But if it's okay for you, if you're the quote unquote linchpin, like you said, it's okay for you to leave. Absolutely okay for them to leave, right?
If they can multiply your productivity and your success, so say, for instance, you perform better, obviously, a tremendous amount of your profit and your success comes from what your trainers do when you're not looking.
Right.
And you don't want to be there looking all the time. So if you can make them be the people who are making sure that patients are happy, referring other patients, getting great results, all that other stuff. I mean, how much would that make your life?
Right. And we're stretching our ideas as an office.
I feel really weird right now because I feel like this is the first time I've ever done a commercial for something. You know, like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know, that I'm.
Are you saying it's okay to have a successful business?
I feel like it's okay to do this stuff. And there's so many people on our side of the fence. Charlie, what's up, Charlie?
Yeah.
Charlie didn't like that term.
Are you feeling soiled, Bobby?
I'm feeling slightly Parker soiled. Like I'm Parker soiled here. But it's just like we need those pieces. There's a reason why these successful chiropractors do these things, and success leaves clues.
Right.
And these people have been doing this stuff for many years, and the success is starting to leave clues. And if you see it, you might want to incorporate some of this stuff.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you have to sell out, but that does mean that maybe there are some great things that straight chiropractors do that can be incorporated into what an evidence-based chiropractor does, and just shoot what you're doing into the stratosphere.
That's right.
Having this Disney wow experience with customer service. Who was that? There was a speaker today. He was a crazy cowboy guy, and he gave no motivation whatsoever. He was not up there to motivationally speak. He said, if your customer service sucks, it's because you suck. If your treatment sucks, it's because you suck treating. You know, if your customer service skills suck, you suck at customer service. If it's to be due, it's up to you. So I just think people need to open their minds to sort of coming to these things, sitting through some of the chaff to get to the wheat.
Yep. But as you do that more and more, you also demand more of the conference, and they're going to step up.
Yeah.
They stepped up, and
money talks.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think the greatest thing for me is like on the first Iron Man movie, they said, I know what you are. And he says, what, a genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist or something like that. You know, he has this saying. And I think that's when I know that we're hitting on all the cylinders, is when the chiropractors that are doing the kind of chiropractic I think they believe in are, you know, millionaire, playboy, philanthropist, miracle workers or something like that. You know, like their patients are super happy. They're making a lot of money. They're providing excellent care, and everybody in their community knows, respects, trusts, likes, and appreciates them. And it's like, you can do all those things and make a lot of money and keep the insurance companies happy and have systems that work and have all those things. And I think that it's important for everybody listening. You got to step out of those shadows that I don't know, man. I just get this feeling that we're sitting in these shadows and we need to break out. So
it's an inferiority complex.
Yeah. Well, it's what do you guys call it in Australia? The tall poppy? Tall poppy syndrome. Yeah. So anyways, all right. Well, let's go have dinner. Let's go have some fun in Vegas. Any last words from either one of you?
If it's to do, it's up to you.
The house always wins.
He's very anti-gambling. He's very disturbed when we go.
Well, you got to remember, like the research says, you're not going to win, right? So it's his core principles.
But I didn't break this down to you. In craps, Tim, that is the only game on the casino floor where the odds are actually in your favor, not the house.
But what Bobby's not telling you, only a portion of that.
Yeah, you can't play the sucker bets. You can only, that's when you play the line, like we talked about.
You can't play hard bets on the dice. You can't. You know, there's a lot.
We're going up big tonight, baby.
That's right. Yeah. So, on behalf of the Forward Thinking Chiropractic Alliance? Can, yes. On behalf of the Forward Thinking Chiropractic Alliance, on behalf of Clinic Gym Radio, on behalf of Chiropractic Research, and the principles based in Norway, and Bobby Maybee, Tim Raven, Dr. Josh Satterlee. Oh, you see how I threw my doctor in there? Yeah, I just mentioned you guys by name. That was slick, right? I learned that this weekend, you know? But anyways, go out there, maximize your license, and live the life you dreamt of. Everybody here is the profession's changed, and we're all here to help you. Go make something of it. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Clinic Gym Radio. If you're ready to double your profit without working longer hours, please visit clinicgymhybrid.com and find out how easy it is to get started on your path to freedom. That's clinicgymhybrid.com.